What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Killers of the Flower Moon, the latest Martin Scorsese film starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, and Lily Gladstone. This is a movie we've been anticipating for a long time. Gosh, we saw the first promo photo, was that in 2020? We've been talking about this movie forever. It's finally out, theatrical release from Paramount Pictures in conjunction with Apple. This will be eventually an Apple TV Plus, but hats off to Apple for committing to a fully throated, wide theatrical release. They'll be doing the same for Ridley Scott's Napoleon next month. Very exciting. Yeah, this is the sixth film for Leo and Marty and the 10th film for De Niro and Marty over a 50-year period. Really cool. And yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon is fantastic. This is another, late period masterpiece for Martin Scorsese. I'd say this is in like the second tier of Marty films. It's not as great as his top tier, but few films are. This is, of course, adapted from the David Grand book, and Scorsese actually co-wrote the screenplay, his first time being involved in the script in quite some time. And yeah, I mean, this is also quite long, 3.5 hours. A lot's been made of that. But to me, the movie doesn't feel long at all. I think it's honestly just a really gripping movie. And it's, I think, very interesting for how it goes about being an adaptation. When we heard about how this movie was coming together, originally, Leo was cast in the FBI investigator character, which was actually played by Jesse Plemons. And the script kind of got changed, and Leo decided to play Ernest Burkhart instead. And that's really kind of where the adaptation got switched up. The book is really more of a whodunit procedural about the murders. Of course, this film set in 1920s Fairfax, Oklahoma, and is about the murders of various members of the Osage Nation, the Osage Native American tribe in the area, because the Osage, after being relocated from Kansas to Oklahoma by the federal government, the Osage ended up coming into a tremendous oil fortune. The land they got moved to had oil that people didn't know about, and thus the Osage community became incredibly wealthy. If you look up the information on like where it comes to today, you're talking, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for like families on end every year. It was huge. And these murders, figuring out who did those murders, the mystery of that's how the book is told. And the lead FBI investigator, ingratiating into the community with his colleagues to figure out what happened. That's what's up with the book. But it's very interesting that that's not how the movie was done. Plemons and the FBI, they don't come into the story until, a few hours in, and it's a minor Plemons performance. He only has so much to do as a result. It's really interesting that very quickly you learn the identity of who's committing these murders, who's behind these murders. It's not about that. I think it's a way more interesting movie following this choice. Of course, we come to learn, come to get introduced very quickly to the bad guys. The villains are the front and center of this movie. William King Hale is De Niro's character, and his nephew, Ernest, played by Leo. William Hale, this wealthy businessman who came to Oklahoma and befriended and came very close with the Osage, and kind of became almost like a liaison between them and white society. Something the Osage kind of didn't have much choice in the matter, but had to have someone like that. It was Will Hale is basically the evil mastermind behind this plot to systematically take control of the Osage oil fortune by marrying into the various families and thus inheriting the head rights to the oil, something that cannot be bought or sold. These rights, they only can be inherited. But thus by marrying in and then offing certain people in the families, the rights could consolidate to Hale or people he controls, like his nephew Ernest. We learn that plot incredibly quickly. And I think it's such a smart choice because, man, this is a gutting movie. It's very unsettling. It's dark. I mean, in the very beginning, you watch murders happen. You watch a mother get murdered right in front of her baby in a stroller, right in broad daylight. It's fucked up all the time. And rather than just be a basic whodunit where there wouldn't be much surprise or mystery about the really famous white actors happen to be the bad guys, shocker, like it's not as interesting of a plot for a film. Rather, this is more about complacency and a lack of acceptance of Native American agency on the part of American society. It's I think it's a much more sinister uh, thematic through line to the narrative to be with these bad men and very transparently understand their greed and watch them tear apart this community that didn't ask for this and didn't have much choice in the matter. And that to me, I think is just it's much more unsettling and just much stronger, much richer. And I think a big part of this too is by not doing the whodunit. Of course, this ends up being almost like a marital drama in a sense because Ernest, at King Hale's behest, marries Molly, soon to be Molly Burkhart, one of the heiress to the fortune. Molly and all their sisters, these adult Osage women. And Molly is played by Lily Gladstone, who, I had seen her in First Cow. She's been in some Kelly Reichardt movies, but this is obviously her biggest role to date. And, I think just it says a lot that an actor, Lily Gladstone in this case, Lily Gladstone is able to hold her scenes and stand toe to toe with Leonardo DiCaprio throughout the entire movie. She is the biggest winner of the movie. It's a great De Niro performance. He actually does a really solid Midwest accent. Um, you know, I really like the two-faced nature to the character. He does a great job. Leo, awesome performance from him. Once again, Leo playing a dim, not the brightest type, but still kind of playing a looker. Like it's a classic Leo performance. He's done characters like this a lot. Leads like Ernest Burkhart are actually pretty common in Scorsese movies too, if you think about it. Great performance as well. But Lily Gladstone, she has such a power, such a presence in the movie, and is really convincing to you that Molly is very understanding of what's going on and how she's treated and perceived, but in the beginning of the movie. And if there's one criticism to have of Killers of the Flower Moon, it's just that due to the nature of the storytelling, Molly ends up being sidelined through a big part of the movie once Ernest slowly begins poisoning her while she's bedridden with, living with diabetes. And as a result, you get less Lily Gladstone for, what was probably an act and a half in the middle of the movie, to be honest. But yeah, she's amazing. And there's a bunch of great Native American acting performances as well. William Bellew, who played someone in the community that Will Hale actually had life insurance policy on in a fucked up way. Great performance from him as well. I think just kind of going through the story, which takes place over several years. I think one of the underrated ways they convey the passage of time is watching Ernest and Molly's kids grow up from babies to adolescence. That's kind of the way I was keeping track of it. But I mean, yeah, just I think watching the heinous shit happen right in front of you throughout, there's some really tough scenes to be with, one of them being Ernest having to Ernest gets this going where Molly's sister and brother-in-law, now the in-laws of Ernest as well, Ernest has their house blown up with dynamite. That was kind of wild, in just a dark way. You just don't feel good watching this movie. Now, in terms of the Martyisms of this, obviously the production design's incredible. The set they made for Fairfax in the 20s looks so good. Cinematography is great. Robbie Robertson on the score, really good, really haunting at times. There's I think it's kind of brief, but it's very much a callback to the Layla scene in Goodfellas, where the FBI is kind of onto things. So Hale starts tying up loose ends, and you watch people get framed for crimes, kind of like set up to get caught or set up to get killed, things of that nature. Very reminiscent of the Layla scene in Goodfellas. I like that a lot. Um, you know, you end up getting I think a pretty solid courtroom scene towards the end. John Lithgow as the good lawyer and Brendan Fraser as Hale's lawyer. Brendan Fraser really just gets 2 scenes in the movie, but he was pretty good. Nice to see him here coming off The Whale, even though I think he made The Whale after Killers of the Flower Moon, of course. But coming off the Oscar win, it was a nice performance from Fraser. I really like this moment where Plemons and his fellow FBI colleagues meet at night in a field and start just kind of downloading each other on things they figured out. It's like, honestly, it's one of the most riveting scenes, and they juxtapose that with De Niro or Hale torching his fields at night with people doing it for him, like looking like a pure villain. And then one of Plemons' colleagues says that he had just sold Hale fire policy on his ranch. Just the complete contempt and like a grift and fraud in broad daylight to these guys. It's really funny. But that scene I thought was really riveting. That's a revelation where the new native character, the young man who comes to town later on, he's actually an undercover agent. That was pretty cool. Kind of obvious. Like he had like a really like noticeable look to him. I figured he was up to something. I didn't necessarily think he was an agent. That was cool though. In a supporting role, I quite enjoyed Sturgill Simpson. In general, kind of like Hale and Ernest's various colleagues and goons they have throughout town, throughout the area that they use to help them do their crimes, all pretty well acted. I liked that a lot. I really liked all of Molly's sisters as well. You know, whenever you get to spend time with the Osage, I think it's really great. Whether you have the wedding scene, the funeral scene, Molly's mom, you know, we get to see the manifestation of when you see the owl come to you. It means death is coming, basically. And they actually personify that when it looked like real, like gray horned owls by the look of it. Watching them like on screen, that was pretty cool. Once Ernest eventually gets caught, the scene he has with Plemons, with the FBI when he's interrogating him, and Ernest just really exposing how dim-witted he is in that scene. Leo's really tremendous. Yeah, I mean, Killers of the Flower Moon, it is a epic Western film. And I think the choice to change up the adaptation and really ground you and place you directly in the crimes, directly in the evil, and juxtapose that with this honestly like really loving relationship, thanks to really great performances and chemistry between Gladstone and DiCaprio. Just a really compelling movie. I mean, Marty, he really hasn't lost a step at all. He's been crushing it. You know, this and The Irishman are his last 2 movies, 2 really long movies, but awesome. You know, and I think he kind of hit all the notes with Killers of the Flower Moon. We had a lot of hype with this, years coming leading up to this movie, and it really delivered for me. You know, this was a movie that, due to the length, it was like, I don't want to get up to go to the bathroom because it's so compelling and so gripping. And man, I was struggling at the end, but I did not get up. So yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon, 44 million opening worldwide at the box office. Pretty good again for an R-rated 3.5-hour movie. It's on the high end of openings for everyone involved for the most part. Pretty impressive. Obviously, this had a really huge budget. It's going to go on Apple pretty soon, but not too soon. So see it in the theater. But yeah, I mean, what a triumph, honestly. I'd expect Lily Gladstone to get nominated for Best Actress. I think she has probably the most juice of all the acting performers, although of course it's hard to really discount Leo, as usual. And Marty, put him in the Best Director mix, Best Adapted Screenplay, of course, Best Picture, of course. The Irishman, famously, 10 nominations at the Oscars, but no wins. I have a feeling Killers of the Flower Moon is not going to have that same fate, but it's obviously way too early to discuss its Best Picture chances. But I'll be talking about that, of course, when I talk about the Oscars as the award season kicks up. So make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod. And of course, leave me a comment. Let me know how you feel about Killers of the Flower Moon. Did you mind the length? What was your favorite performance? What was your favorite part? Were you happy about the adaptation changes like me? And for more movie reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time.